So, hello everyone. Greetings from the Digital Innovation Pavilion at the COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh. I'm Miroslav Polzer, and I'm delighted to present today to you Mariana de la Roche Wills from the IOTA Foundation and co-chair of the Social Impact and Sustainability Working Group of INATBA. Mariana will present the Blockchain 100 Plus initiative, Blockchain for United Nations Values and Goals. Please, Mariana, take the floor and educate us about how blockchain can help the UN system and how your initiative is guiding the way there. Please.
Yeah, thank you, Miroslav. Good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be back at COP this year. Next time, I will try to actually make it in person so I can get to know all of you. As you heard, my name is Mariana La Roche, and I have multiple hats. The Regulatory Affairs Manager of the IOTA Foundation. I'm also the co-chair of the Social Impact and Sustainability Working Group of INATBA, and I'm one of the leads of an initiative called Blockchain 100 Plus. And regardless the hat that I'm using, and when I use all of them at the same time, like today, my job is basically one, and is to raise awareness about the potential of blockchain for social good and sustainability. And today I will do that exactly, but with especially putting attention to the climate applications. So that said, there are a couple of things that I want to discuss with you. So the first one is that I want to tell you a little bit about why blockchain is important and how it can contribute to climate applications. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what we have been up to within ADPA, and then I'm going to introduce to you to the 100 Blockchain 100 Plus initiative. And then also I'm going to tell you how you can get involved and contribute to this initiative. And I know that like people get lost when I start to talk about blockchain. So, so to make it easier for you, I'm also going to give you a lot of examples during my presentation, so you can see how blockchain works on the real life application, so you get a better understanding of the potential of the technology. So first things first, and is why do we even consider blockchain for the climate application? And the answer to this question is basically because of the characteristics of blockchain and how it can generate trust in the data that we produce and consume. So basically, once a transaction, including data transactions, are added into the blockchain, those transactions cannot be changed by anyone. And any alteration or trying to modify the data can be easily identified. So blockchain solutions enhance the transparency, trust, and accuracy of different value of the value of data sets. And this in climate application can be applied when we do data collection, the calculation of the data, or the reporting of the data. Also, blockchain represents a shift from manual collection and assessments of data to automated solutions. So basically what we are doing is like limiting the need for middlemen or middlewomen, as well as the chances of human error that can impact the data that we are using. And having these data sets that are accurate and generate trust can drive more investment into the sector, but it also can prevent greenwashing, and it can help us to make better decisions on the intervention and projects that we are designing. So we can talk a lot about why blockchain and how blockchain, but I would like to point out that there are already a lot of use cases there, especially for climate. And there are like use cases for climate adaptation as well as climate mitigation. So I just wanted to give you some examples here, but mitigation and adaptation for the blockchain sector means the same as for the rest of the industry. So when we talk about like blockchain projects in the mitigation sector, we are talking about like projects that are helping us to prevent climate change or prevent the situation to get even worse. And when we talk about like blockchain projects working in adaptation use cases, we're talking about use cases that are actually helping us to deal with the consequences that we're already paying because of climate change. So the first one, and in the mitigation side, one of my favorite examples is the DMRV. DMRV stands for Digital Monitoring, Reporting and Verification, and it is a project working on climate monitoring. And basically what they're doing is guaranteeing the veracity of the data utilized by climate researchers and institutions, so they rely on data that cannot be faked, and therefore is data that they can trust. Also, it's important, this project answers to the needs to the improvement of interoperability among monitoring, reporting, and verification systems. It helps us to avoid double counting and double claiming, and also support climate change strategies to be more cost efficient and effective in achieving their goals. The second project that I want to present here is on the other side of the slide, and is in regards to climate adaptation, and is WACS. WACS stands for like well-adapted coffee supply. And the idea behind WASC is actually to create a front-end application that connects with other existing and already in place applications that are working in supply chain. And the idea is to provide information about the provenance of goods to ensure the sustainability of the products. And this application will allow stakeholders to track where climate adaptation practices have been put in place during the whole supply chain, and how those practices are leading to reduce the vulnerability of the entire supply chain. Maybe an interesting fact here is that most of the applications that I have seen for blockchain from adaptation are in regards to supply chain. So if you're interested in this topic, I will also recommend you to check two projects. One is UNDP project for cashmere production, which I'm almost certain works or is like developed in Mongolia. And the other one is the TLIP project implemented by the IOTA Foundation, which is implemented in East African countries in cooperation with the UK, and it's a really interesting project. But there's one important remark that I wanted to do here, and is that these projects won't generate the impact that we need alone and working in isolation. So we actually need to help or find ways to support these projects to scale their adoption so they can actually impact, or the impact becomes global. And there are multiple ways to do that, but basically we need more interoperability among the different protocols, but we also need a standardization of processes among jurisdictions. And there's a lot of work to be done in regards to standardization and regulation, but one thing that we can do now is to promote among the projects the principle of cooperation and no competition. So we don't need to always reinvent the wheel and compete for resources, but we can work together to generate more impact in a faster way. And this is basically what we do within ACPA. So for those that don't know, in ACPA, here is the 1-minute speech. So we are an international association formed by different stakeholders, and our main goal is to support the blockchain ecosystem and promote the global blockchain adoption. We have like over 170 members across 32 countries, and we have 6 working groups that prioritize different topics. For example, I call it the Social Impact and Sustainability Working Group, and hence why I'm here talking to you today. Besides our members, we also have an academic advisory board and governmental advisory board that support us with a variety of actions, especially when we need to do reviews of papers, of publications, also when we want to just create events and get in contact with governmental institutions. So as I said, I represent the Social Impact and Sustainability Working Group, and I just wanted to let you know a little bit what we have been up to. So in 2019 and 2020, we conducted a survey with 69 projects, and the idea was to understand the challenges and opportunities of blockchain projects when trying to achieve or support the implementation of actions in regards to sustainable development goals. And what came out of that survey was consolidated into a report that we published it in September of 2021. And after that, we decided to prioritize 2 of the challenges that we saw the projects were having. The first one was that we noticed that when talking about like social impact, all the projects had a different understanding and definition of what social impact was. So what we decided to do was to do a review of different definitions that were there, and then we came out with a definition for the blockchain sector. And it's basically what you see on the screen. So we define social impact as any intentional or unintentional measurable outcomes from actions implemented or as a result of those actions by individuals in the private or the public sector that affects the cultural and socioeconomic environment of other individuals and communities in a positive way. And why we decided to apart a little bit for the other definitions that we saw is especially this unintentionality part, because we saw that some of the projects didn't it was not part of the design to generate social impact. It just like happened for the way that they were intervening some communities or the way that they were developing the project. So it was for us super important to include these sets of projects that even though they were not focusing on social impact, they were generating it anyway. If you were in Brussels 2 weeks ago and you saw my definition, this is slightly different because this is actually the version reviewed by the Academic Advisory Board of INATPA. We have a whole paper in how we came to this definition, and it's going to be published at the end of this month. So I'm happy to share it with all of you if you want to read it. The second action that we prioritized was a mapping exercise for impact measurement. And basically this was done because we saw a big challenge that a small and medium-sized project were having. Basically because, of course, we have the ISO standards and the IRIS standards, but these standards are not easy to follow, especially for small projects that have limited capacity or limited resources. So they don't have the budget or the resources to bring external consultants to do the impact measurement and impact assessment for them. And they also don't have the resources to hire people that is specialized on these topics that can integrate these practices into the normal operation of the projects. However, once the projects are scaled and there are like different requirements, but among them is like 250 employees, they will need to comply with environmental standards and then there's a big jump on like not doing anything to actually comply with these standards. So what we wanted to provide was an easy way for them to start incorporating a series of steps into the operations that you don't need to have any knowledge in impact assessment to be able to implement these steps. So you make it part of the habit and the regular operations of the project to pay attention to these steps that will later on help you to showcase your impact. And especially for small projects, this is really important because showcasing impact would also allow them to approach a different set of stakeholders that can be interested in impact and impact assessments, and then they can invest or donate into the project so they can actually scale it. This model was also reviewed by the Academic Advisory Board. There is also a whole paper behind on which models we review and how we came or selected the steps that are incorporated, and also why we broke it down in 4 phases. And it's going to be published at the beginning of December. So also happy to share. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is the Blockchain 100 Plus initiative, which was started by the EP think tank and INATPA and IOTA both joining the initiative in September this year. So we are kind of newbie here. But basically this initiative is trying to contribute to the UN Charter values by mapping the blockchain for good ecosystem worldwide and organizing a series of regional consultations to understand the blockchain priorities and the different regions and how blockchain can actually contribute to the achievement of the 2030 agenda and the SDGs on time. And I will talk a little bit more about the initiative and the activities, but like first I will just like to point out that this is not a one person show. So this is actually a collective effort. And all the organizations that you see on the slide are taking part of the leading team that is implementing this initiative. As you can see, Climate Change Coalition is one of them, and that's why Miroslav kindly invited me to talk to you today a little bit about the potential of blockchain for social good. What is important also to notice is that all of these companies and associations are leading or like leaders pushing blockchain for good, and regardless that they have like different statutes, different legal configurations, organizations and are based in different countries, they share this common goal of showcasing the power of blockchain for social good and sustainability. So now, let's talk a little bit about the activities that we are actually doing. So the initiative is supporting and promoting the work that has been done for 3 organizations. So Positive Blockchain starting a mapping exercise since 2017. Blockchain for Good did the same in 2018, and INADPA did the same in 2019. So all of these different organizations were already mapping which projects were out there in different regions and how these blockchain projects were impacting sustainability, and they were generating social impact as well. So now we came all together and we consolidated all the information and projects that we have in a database, which intends to be the most comprehensive overview and portfolio of projects worldwide for the Blockchain for Good ecosystem. So currently, the database has over 1,200 entries, so projects, and we intend to have like 2,000 by the end of this year. Also important to note that each project has like 110 data points, which means we are collecting a lot of information about each of the projects, and that is because this database is not only used to present a portfolio of the projects that are working in blockchain for social good, but also we are using that information for research. So Blockchain for Good and Positive Blockchain published not long ago, a couple of months ago, a report about the blockchain ecosystem, and they use the information that they are collecting about these projects to produce the report. I think it's only in French for now, but it's going to be translated to other languages. So I will really recommend to read it to understand how the configuration of the Blockchain for Good ecosystem. Also, I wanted to just like give you an overview of the type of projects that are in the database, but I'll also to give you some examples of like climate applications concretely. So I'm going to present like 4 projects to you, and super briefly. All these projects, if you Google them, you can have more information about them, or I can make a personal intro to the people implementing them if you want to get more information. So the first one is the SCALA program. SCALA is the short for scaling up climate ambitions on land use and agriculture. And it's a project implemented by like 3 organizations: the UNDP, UN Food and Agriculture Office, and the International Climate Initiative. And this is a climate adaptation project that aims to deal with the impact of climate change in the agriculture sector in 12 countries. So it's a really ambitious project, and it's implemented in 3 regions: Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And the project focuses on designing key data elements that represent climate resilient practices. And these data points are then later on connected to the blockchain. And this data is used to help policymakers, food producers, and audit agencies to stimulate the implementation of adaptation practice at the regional level. And the main goal is to identify and implement priority climate actions in the agriculture sector to achieve the national targets in terms of climate. The next project is another example of the intersection between climate and agriculture, and is implemented by Signar. Signar has different projects, but today I want to focus on the agriculture one. Spoiler alert, they're creating a really cool project regarding GHG and digital twins, and it promised to be really interesting. So you can stay tuned on their website to see once they make it public to check it out. But now regarding the agricultural project, basically what they're doing is collecting data from the crops via IoT devices. So here again, all the process of digitalization of previous manual practices. And with this data that they are collecting, they can monitor the real-time growing conditions of the crop. And once the information is collected, it goes into the blockchain where you can see the traceability of the data. So you are certain that it has not been altered and it's actually the data that we are collecting from the devices and the sensors. And then this data is later on analyzed by an AI system that they have in place that reports back in the quality and the growth conditions of the crops. And finally, this data is represented in a digital twin. So this is a really fascinating way and user-friendly way to actually present and understand of the data to understand the status of the crops. Also, they have an integrated marketplace to eliminate the need for intermediaries or brokers, saving resources and making the process even more efficient and profitable for farmers. And the next example I wanted to give you, and this is on purpose, I selected like 3 projects working on agriculture, so you can see how blockchain use cases can impact one industry from different angles. So the next project is Genatech, and Genatech, besides having climate agriculture components, it also have a financial inclusion component. So what they do basically is the tokenization of a really important traditional asset, which is the land. And they do this to enable microfinancing into local farmers to access, so for the local farmers to access the resources that they need to work and develop their land. So basically, they tokenize and fraction the land and allow different stakeholders to invest in the different fractions of the land. And the funds are then used by the farmer to develop, cultivate, and grow the land. And then the investors receive at the same time a reward at the end of the harvest. So please consider the impact of actually this project, because it is helping farmers that normally cannot access loans in the traditional financial sector for different reasons, and therefore is helping not only them to empower these farmers with the resources they need to work their land and become financially sustainable, but also in the long run, what this project is helping us to do or to achieve is like breaking down poverty cycles. So the long-term impact of the project is just fantastic. Then here another example of a project working in the intersection between climate and blockchain, but this is not about agriculture, but actually reforestation. So Berry Tree is a project that they tackle some of the issues with traditional tracking system like double spending or the lack of transparency, but it also incentivizes communities, including the crypto community, to get involved in this kind of initiatives. So basically, they are building relationship with the local organizations and the community to sponsor planting projects. And how do they do that? Well, basically, they find sponsors for planting organizations, and then the planting organization does, of course, the planting, but also provides information via a platform about the socioeconomic conditions of the field and the characteristics of the plantation. And they also provide geospatial information and photos of the tree, and they have an identifier for the tree, so you know that like is your tree the one that you're seeing and not someone else's tree. So this is how we avoid double spending. This data can be used then by sponsors to monitor and verify the performance of the trees. And this is also another cool example that I would just like to highlight for the potential of replication of this use case to other sectors, because it's actually showcasing complete transparency to donors about what we are doing, donors, investors or sponsors, and what we are doing with the funds that are given us. And if we can replicate this to other projects and other areas, we can actually incentivize donations into the particular use case that we are implementing. And now, because we're talking about donations, I wanted to give you a bonus project. This is not working on climate, but actually in humanitarian settings, and is an initiative called Artists for Ukraine that is implemented by the SUNA Labs. So basically what they did was collecting art pieces for over 20 artists worldwide, and those art pieces became NFTs, and you can access these NFTs in the Sonaverse. It's super user friendly. If you have never had an NFT, I will invite you to actually try this, because it's also for a good cause. But basically, all the funds that are collected by the selling of these NFTs go directly to the wallets of 2 NGOs in Ukraine working on humanitarian settings. So this is a really interesting use case of how crypto can support organizations and projects working in the front line. So more than invited for you to go to the Sonaverse and check how they do it. Also super easy, again, to try to get like your first NFTs if you have never played with them. Okay, so I already talked a lot about like the projects and the mapping exercise and give you some examples. So now I'm going to talk briefly about regional consultations. So the regional consultations are the second set of activities that we are doing with Blockchain 100 Plus, and we are going to do it virtually to actually promote and engage more stakeholders, and they're going to be implemented during the first and second quarter of 2023. And basically, there are a couple of things that we why we want to do these consultations, but basically what we want to do is document the status of the blockchain for sustainability in different regions. And we want to do this first because we think that in this way we're going to reach out to projects that we don't know yet and that can be part of the mapping exercise. But also we want to understand what are or which are the sustainability priorities on the different regions and how blockchain can actually support government institutions and NGOs to work on those priorities. We also want to understand which are the areas where blockchain is creating major impact already on those industries in regards to sustainable development. And at the end, what we want to do is come with a concrete set of or like list of actions that can be implemented at the national and regional level to support these projects, these blockchain projects, to actually help us to achieve the 2030 agenda and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, again, on time. And then what is really interesting for these consultations, and here's where my invitation will come later on, is that we want to engage different stakeholders. So we want to engage, of course, blockchain projects and organizations working on sustainable topics and also not working on sustainable topics, so they engage in these topics. We want to involve policymakers and government institutions because it's important that they understand the power of blockchain and how actually blockchain can help us to achieve or like overcome some challenges to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We also want to invite recognized universities and academic institutions because they also need to be part of the conversation and support with research the actual impact of those projects or showcase what they're doing back with science. And we also want investors and development funds involved here so the projects know how to approach them or like understand what these funds and investors are looking for when they look for projects. So actually the projects know better how to reach out to them to scale or deploy their solutions. We want international associations and international organizations, of course, like bringing all the knowledge and expertise about the regions and like the global vision. And we want UN blockchain projects, as I mentioned, that are already UN agencies implemented blockchain projects. So we want them also to come and showcase what they are doing and how they are doing it. So at the end, the idea is to just like bring like this multi-stakeholder perspective to each of the regions, so we have a more accurate vision of what is going on in the region and how we can help. Basically, what we want to do with the initiative then is that the mapping exercise, like mapping the whole blockchain ecosystem, plus the information that we are going to collect of the regions, are going to contribute to one thing, and is to actually identify what is the potential of the blockchain ecosystem to contribute to the achievement of the 2030 agenda and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. All this information is going to be consolidated in a chapter or like a report that we plan to present in the Summit of the Future in 2023 in September in New York to the United Nations General Assembly to actually showcase the willingness of the sector to contribute to these topics. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different ways to actually get involved with us and with the initiative. So if you have projects or no blockchain projects that are working on these topics and they should be part of the database, you can contact my colleagues Luca and Pierre from Prosity Blockchain and Blockchain for Good. If you Google their names or LinkedIn, you can find any of those names and get in contact with them and see how we can involve those projects. If you are interested in participate as a speaker or attendees in the regional consultations or know someone that we should definitely involve, please reach out to me, to Madeleine, or to Blake, depending of which region do you want to address. If you need any general information, you can always contact me. And if you want to support the initiative with some sponsors or like get like more information about this, you can always contact Raymond. And I think I will leave it here because I speak like already like way too long. And I don't know if there are questions or Miroslav, you will let me know how we can move forward. But like, thank you, everyone. I don't hear you.
Okay. Hello, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for this excellent presentation. It's really a great initiative, very impressive. And we have here now a little bit of a challenge with the camera. Okay, it has switched off, so just a second. Okay. No, it will not turn on. It's the battery. Okay, we will do it without camera now. Yeah, thanks for the initiative. It is amazing. We are very much convinced that this blockchain technology can help the United Nations system and global goals very much. It is also a key understanding why we are doing this pavilion here. We want to bring digital solutions, and the work that you have done with your BC100 Plus initiative is uh, very valuable in this context because you have already the mapping exercise. You are doing these consultations with the stakeholders. And so I see great synergy potentials, and we will bring then also the outcomes of the initiative to the COP28 next year. And also we are in consultation that we will include your results in other United Nations conferences. We've had this year in September an event about digital innovation for youth climate action empowerment at the UN headquarters in New York. So we could have something broader that we bring there. And yeah, it's really leadership in this field. Congratulations also to Raymond van Ermen, who has been the visionary behind the project. And it's good that IOTA Foundation with you is now helping to make it concrete and taking the needed practical steps. And we have here some people in the audience. Perhaps there would be some questions. Would you like to ask something, perhaps? Or you are also welcome to join.
Hello. Hey, Mariana. My name is Sherwood Moore. I really enjoyed your presentation. I work with the Climate Action and Accounting Special Interest Group, which is developing blockchain solutions under the Linux Hyperledger umbrella. And we are focused on essentially developing a tool that allows for tracking of carbon emissions across corporate supply chains and all the things that can be done with that. And we're I was very happy to hear about your work. I don't really have a question, more as just an introduction because I'm planning to reach out to you and just kind of explore a little bit more because we've been operating kind of heads down building, and now we're kind of pulling our heads kind of up and looking around and trying to understand the ecosystem a little bit better. Because we're open source, we are trying to figure out how to kind of build a community of solutions to bring them together and kind of be the kind of the technological infrastructure that allows a free flow of information from supply chains to financial markets and kind of unlock a lot of the value there. So, yeah, I mean, your presentation was really good. So I think at a high level, I understand a high level. And so I'll reach out and get maybe the low level at another time.
Okay, thank you so much for your very interesting presentation, Maria. I am Ibrahim Mahmoud from Nigeria. I just have a couple of questions because do you have any collaborator in Nigeria around this topic?
I'm sure there are projects there. Like I don't have like anyone on the top of my head. Like I actually mentioned one, but it's actually like more like East Africa, which is the TLIP, which is actually like working with supply chain for the trading of fish and flowers between East African countries and the UK. And it's really interesting project because it's actually like avoiding like all the hassles with like paper trade and making the market more competitive for like in terms of like competitiveness with the European sector. So so actually you can just like if you want we can share more information on that. Otherwise you can just like go to blockchain for good, the website, and then you will see like the database of projects. Like this is a public database, it's open source database. You can just like simply go there and then just like check which projects are actually like implementing use cases in Nigeria, and then the information is there.
Okay, so what I'm looking at, it's moving forward if there are going to be kind of opportunities. So now, the opportunities that I am looking at to like further create or co-create around this topic is I work with a regulatory agency that is looking at an oil and gas pollution. So you have gas flare, you have CO2 emission tracking, you have methane emission tracking. Now, there is discrepancies around how measurement, verification, reporting and verification is done, because there are multiple agencies that are involved. So we are looking at developing a system that will come up with a digital approach to see that operators in the oil and gas sector actually have a standard reporting system, and as a government agency we can actually monitor and measure based on our own tools. So there is a need to connect the financial aspect, because there is penalties and fines, and this is really very hard to track. So I'm looking at how in the framework we have, how blockchain can be included such that we can actually know what operators, when operators report, and a kind of system that will be able to link both the payment of fines and the kind of reporting that they do, such that the needed transparency around reporting or self-reporting that they do, we have a link that gives the regulator at least a sense of following what the operators are disclosing in terms of the emission records that we like to keep track of. I don't know if you have anything to say, so I'm open to collaboration around this.
When you were talking about, like, I just like have like a couple of people in the back of my head that like I should really introduce to you. Like, again, I'm not a technical person. I'm a lawyer. My background is in law, so I cannot go over the technicalities of the project. But definitely, there's like, do you remember when I was like talking about like the DMRB? The DMRB is a project that actually is like doing something similar. They don't have the incentive part, but like, of course, like the idea is like that you don't just like take one project and replicate exactly in the other places, but you use what is already built and then like build on top of that and generate the other usabilities that you will need. So if you want, I share my email in the last slide. Like, I don't know how to go back there, but like, please send me an email and I can connect you to Matthew Jagger, which is the person that is actually implementing the DMRB project, which is actually working on cooperation with Climate Change Coalition, with Tom Baumann. And they had a really cool project with gold standards as well. And they were like doing something similar for like the reporting part. And maybe you can talk to him about the options of like doing a pilot in Nigeria with you, or like and with the government, and see how we can build on top an incentive system for the reporting of the data, which has been working in other projects, not in the DMRB especially. They have been doing, like, they work on like 2 pilots in Chile, and there's no incentive system attached to the project, but I don't see why this wouldn't be possible there. So happy to make the introduction.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? No? Mariana, any concluding remarks? Okay, let me come here. Okay.
No, well, thank you very much for the invitation. I guess that the idea at the end is showcasing the power of blockchain and the different use cases that we have. Again, I only just like mentioned 4 projects in climate, 1 in humanitarian settings, but we have like over like the idea is to have like 2,000 projects on that database by the end of the year. So the variety of the ecosystem is huge and their potential as well. So I will just like invite to explore more in this area. And of course, just like reach out for partnerships. Like I think I really believe in the power of like working together and the collective impact. And I think that that's what we are up to with in ADPA, with the different associations and partners that we have, with the Blockchain 100 Plus initiative, like bringing together different initiatives. And with IOTA, we do it the same, but like with our community. So the power of collaboration is huge. So I will just invite everyone to just like be more open to that. And of course, like my data is there, like my contact data is there, like, or like with my name, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you need anything or want to participate or need an introduction, I'm always happy to make the bridge.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the great work that you're doing. And I'm sure we will have many more opportunities to collaborate, as this is a very important area for the world. To master the climate crisis, blockchain potentials have to be harnessed, and your project is really a flagship initiative in this field. Wishing you much success and looking forward to fruitful cooperation.
Great. Thank you for inviting me. Maybe next year I will see you there.
Bye.